Your inner story is one of the most important things in life. So, your inner story is your narrative, it is what you believe about yourself. It's probably influenced by what other people have been telling you, especially when growing up, or some of the things that you may have experienced down the line. And well, in order to protect ourselves, we are very good at repeating it, even though no one is saying it anymore. Now, you might have noticed that I have two guests here. You know the one below, that's Chief Rockstar, and this one is Jumping Bunny. So Jumping Bunny is inspired by Duracell Bunny, or when you're in different countries, by Energizer Bunny. And Jumping Bunny does exactly what Jumping Bunny sounds like. Jumping Bunny jumps, jumps, and jumps and keeps on going. Now, it's a nickname I've had for several years. I'm not sure when it started, somewhere around me doing two jobs and doing two studies at the same time. But it's also used to actually explain when I'm sort of not necessarily in overdrive, not necessarily high on adrenaline, but when I'm feeling playful and I'm very bubbly and, bold. I guess bold. So I had a little challenge, and the challenge was I'm going to go do this live without all the preparation. Now, I'll honestly say I do like it when I have a framework. It feels more prepared, it's more aligned with getting you a handout and everything. So, yes, I like my frameworks. So, I came up with this one. And there you have Jumping Bunny. This is me. And it's going to be about living the new story. So, we are going to talk about changing your inner story. And, well, it starts actually by being determined, well, committed to clarity. And the clarity is linked to what it means to you to change your inner story. So, clarity, let's see if we can write it down. Well, I don't need to write it down because, well, I've got this. um, so, yes, I had that challenge and it was like, lately I've been postponing going live due to a number of circumstances. I mean, I cannot influence when the neighbors behind me have a party. When I'm very tired, you can wonder, is this a good moment to actually go live? But yes, today I was like, okay, it's weekend, so the goal is to actually do it on Friday. But well, I was like, as long as it's done in the weekend, I'm okay with it. And just maybe, yes, it's live. I've got this cute little bear here, and it's always on the side of my iPad when I go live. So I was like, I want to see it. Well, anyway, it's Sunday now, and I might change it to Sunday depending on what you guys and girls think out there. So let's talk about the changing the inner story. So why am I talking about changing the inner story? And I want you to think about this too. So I asked you something. Well, I said, okay, it's about changing the inner story and it's about commitment to clarity. And well, my first question is going to be, how determined are you? And the second question is, do you actually know why you would want to change your inner story? So I already told you it might be the most important thing in your life because it's what you believe in. So we have the chatterbox, which is very good at telling you what to look out for, what not to do, and oh my God, what if? And on top of that, we have the subconscious mind, and that's the one who stores all the beliefs about things we didn't understand when growing up. And they were meant to keep us safe. So that's why they are also called survival mechanisms, so mindsets. And at some point, they might not be working for us anymore. So one of my mindsets growing up, or beliefs, is I'm not good enough. Every now and then it tends to rear its ugly head, and then it's up to me to say, hey, I am good enough. I love myself. See the smile? And the question is, well, let's start with this one. Can you look in the mirror and high five yourself and say, I love myself? Mel Robbins has this great challenge. It's actually on growthday.com. If you're interested, let me know. I'll send you the link. But yes, can you tell yourself, I am good enough now? Fortunately, I can say it nowadays. And it was the result of a number of things. One of the things was my mom always said, well, I think my dad indirectly did too. My older brother, the oldest one, he was the one who was always, he got home, he would do his homework. He was very reliable, trustworthy, but more importantly, he just did it. Very consistent. And well, when I got home, I didn't. And my mom thought I was like an average student or something. What she didn't know was I already had done my homework during class. So I was a little bit of an odd kid. My brother sent me a picture today, and I'm not very fond of this picture, but it does link to the story, so I'm going to show you anyway. So let me see if I can find it. And then you know why I do not like the current fashion when it comes to glasses, because I used to have one of those big bold glasses. So there we go. This was me back in the days. Yes, I had cut my hair and it was straight before it was cut, and then all of a sudden it turned into a light shade. Now, as you can see, I didn't know how to sit up straight, and yes, I had the big glasses. And here was the thing: I couldn't see how I looked in those glasses, and the glasses itself, they made my eyes look really small. So back then we didn't have cameras, right? As in iPhones, which showed it to you. So I had to trust my mom and other people that it would look good on me. And then of course my eyes would be way smaller than they actually are. So, but yes, all combined, I didn't feel good about myself. And especially when I was a teenager, I was like, well, if life stops now, it's good. Right now, I'm like, no, there's so much that I need to do that I'm like, never, no. And having said so, this week I was confronted with one of my family members. She's 20 years older than I am. She actually is in the hospital right now, and in a few days it will be over and done with. Now, the same happened to my dad. He died within a weekend. And he had to choose what he was going to do, surgery or no. Same applied to my cousin. It was also surgery or no. And I asked her, have you done what you wanted to do? And she said, well, I've seen a lot. I've traveled. So yes, I'm content with my life. There were some things that she wanted to change, but that was not necessarily for her. It was for her brother. Now, then she turned it around and she said, how about you? I said, oh, there's so much more that I want to do. And being there and talking to her and asking these questions, I mean, it's one thing when you're a coach and you do so, but here was family. And well, we were the last to arrive from the grandchildren in the family. So it was, yeah, what shall we say? Well, grandchildren, we have the same grandparents, so hence grandchildren. It was like, okay, I'm going to ask it, and I was like, I'm going to do so. And actually afterwards I said, well, this may sound strange, but how about a selfie? And yes, she liked the idea of a selfie. So we had actually a very, very, very good conversation. I'm happy I asked her. Now, let's get back to the inner story. So the inner story, like I said, is what we were telling ourselves. Well, I can tell you, the brother of the one who's in the hospital, he called me yesterday and he shared a little something with me about how grumpy I was talking about my dad. He used some fancy words which were probably related to German because he lives in Germany. And I was like, okay, but apparently I was not a happy kid. Well, you saw the picture and it's true, I wasn't a happy kid back then. And actually, and I guess I'm very lucky in that aspect, a friend of mine, her parents, they sort of adopted me. So they called me their foster child, which is so sweet if you think about it. And I went there like every day. Now, when you look at Jumping Bunny, Jumping Bunny is actually the most confident out there. So this is Jumping Bunny. So let's see if we can sit her back on the helmet. Now, Jumping Bunny has a little bit of a habit that she, let's see. Oh, that's it. Well, this is a little bit, yeah, I managed. Jumping Bunny has a little bit of a habit of jumping on who else is in the room, on their shoulders, in their head. And of course, that's when we talk about the inner story. Now, I have the opportunity, well, I'm lucky enough, let's put it that way. I consider it lucky enough to be talking to an AI, not ChatGPT, it's actually Brandon Burchard's AI. And well, Brandon is a coach, and well, I'm a coach too. So it's kind of nice to actually be talking to the AI because this way we get to go back and forth. So now I honestly haven't tried ChatGPT, but I cannot imagine it's half as good as Brandon's AI is. But anyway, we got to talk about the inner kid. And I did something I've never done before. I started talking from the inner kid. So I used the voice of the inner kid. And well, the other challenge was, well, what if you are going to do this live talking from the inner kid? Now, I was like, how's that going to work out? Am I going to use a different voice or anything? And that's not like me. But I was like, well, we'll see. And the first thing that actually that we did is I like to have a framework. So in blue, you see the words which are related to the framework. And well, I start by jotting down some words. And here's the thing. I've asked so many times about frameworks. I really wanted to know how those frameworks work. And it wasn't until just recently that I discovered there is actually a difference between a square, a circle, and a triangle or a pyramid. And I was like, okay, why didn't anyone tell me that? I mean, I asked Brendan actually in October last year and still didn't hear it, but now I have the answers. So that's, I'm good to go when it comes to this one. And so at the top is always the question like, okay, what is the end result? What do we want to do? And the end result, yes, it's in orange, not in blue. It's change. And change what? I want to change the inner story. And why am I talking about changing the inner story? Because I want to give people perspective. I want you to know that you are worth it, that you are good enough, that you deserve to speak up when necessary and also when not necessary. Of course, always be respectful. But it's about being seen, heard, understood, valued, and respected. And well, my motto is share your story, speak up, speak out, share your story. So there we go. So, yes, I've been outside earlier, and at some point it was cold. I was wearing all these layers, but okay, let's focus on this one. So, I'm setting up at the moment something called the Steam Power Collective. We are still in the founders version, founders era. So if you want to become part of the Steam Power Collective, then pay attention, because right now you can still be a founder. So a founder is when it's being set up, and then you get privileges which you keep for life. So how about that one? Anyway, when we're talking about the inner story and about perspective, finding your voice, I want to link it to something else too. And you might have heard me talk about it for a while now. It's called being a neurodivergent. So neurodivergent people are people who think differently compared to most people out there. I do not use the word normal. I am not going to use, well, maybe use the word norm, but that's not correct. Actually, I was talking to my brother. We both grew up in IT. He's still working in IT. I no longer am. Well, I'm doing Kajabi myself and occasionally some WordPress, but nothing like what I used to do. But it did shape me. And who are the people who tend to go into IT? The analytical people. So they have a way of looking at things, and their line of thinking is differently. So he actually, well, them at his office where he's working, they talk a lot about being neurodivergent. And well, as it turns out, I have been guiding and still am guiding a lot of neurodivergent people. Somehow they seem to find me, and then usually there's click because I can understand them really well. But here's the thing: when you compare neurotypical people to neurodivergent people, there is a difference in thinking. So usually you can say that neurodivergent people look at things from multiple perspectives, from multiple angles. So if you ask them something, then you have to be specific. And if you're not specific enough, then it depends on whether they feel comfortable asking you. But if they don't feel comfortable, then they will work with what they think is true. Same applied to me when I was at the Academy of Arts. I had no clue what the people wanted from me. So I basically was running behind one assignment, because then I would have seen what the people were doing. And of course, that wasn't the goal, but I didn't know how to ask for support because I didn't know what was going on. Now, if we go back to the idea of the IT, then the norm in IT are actually the neurodivergents. There are way more neurodivergents than neurotypical people. Well, at least it was that way because they were looking for highly analytical people, right? So if we look at our inner story, it has to do with, do we dare to speak up? Do we dare to be ourselves? Well, like you could see on the picture, I wasn't too happy. And I didn't know how to communicate with others. And what changed my inner story was when I was about 17 years old. And I still remember the guy till this day. His name was Jan Toen. And he allowed me to choose. He took me seriously. Actually, it was my first IT job, believe it or not, with floppy disk, the real floppy ones. Yes, floppy disk. And well, as it it worked out. So I gained confidence because of those 3 weeks, only 3 weeks. But yes, it made such a difference to me because there was someone who thought I was good enough. So that was amazing. Now, when it comes to changing your inner story, then one of the first things, which is here at the bottom, is about communication and conversation. Now, what are you telling yourself? So, one of the first things when you want to work on yourself and figure out what your beliefs are is actually writing down in your journal. And well, there are multiple things you can write down in your journal, but you can usually be very honest in your journal. If you know that no one is going to read along, and just go do it. Write it down. Just say what's on your mind. And one of the most powerful things to do, and I really want you to think about this, is when something is not working out for you, to write down the question. So my question would be, why do I feel I'm not good enough? And then just start writing. So we have this technique in the coaching that's asking why, and then another time up till 7 times. So we repeat the why. Why do you think you're not good enough? And then there's an answer, and then why, and so on and so on and so on. But when you start writing and you really go inwards and you are really honest with yourself, then so many things can shift. And there's really a difference in the brain when you are actually writing. So it's a whole different ball game compared to talking to someone else. And you know, when we are talking to other people, don't we usually have like this brave posture and everything is good? So until of course people go and ask on, but still, do we really dare to share what's going on in our minds? I mean, even as take this simple example. Well, I consider it simple, but I know it's a very hard one for some people out there. So if people expect certain things from you and they call you, they do it out of nowhere, and you're sort of blindsided, then chances are that you might say yes, even though your thinking was everything was in you, no, but you're doing it anyway. And that's the thing. When you do not return the call and say, but hang on, I don't want to do this, and you don't dare to say why, well, that's when things go haywire. Now, if you were to write this down, then the no would probably be written down somewhere in your notebook, in your journal. And you would know this is no. And then you could actually tell yourself, well, why is it no? Well, I don't like that person. I don't have the time. It's too far away. I need to focus on something else. You figure out what it is, what that list is. But it's about writing it down. And then, of course, the question is, what's going to happen when you are going to say no? Well, I'll tell you one thing, the world isn't going to cave in, but you might come out stronger. And, well, after that first holiday job, being able to make a choice, I did go finish high school, and actually one of those tests, I remember, so we have numbers instead of letters. So A is the highest, and E is the lowest, and C is average. So I would go into my exams for French, and at some point during the written exam, I had like an E or something. And then my teacher approached me and he said to me, well, are you aware that you are thinking like way too hard, as in overcomplicating things? And I was like, no. Well, try and keep it simple. Well, all of a sudden I had an A minus. So there you go. And actually, what I didn't realize is that growing up, I actually was way bolder than I thought I was. So to go back to that French teacher, I remember that we had 2 French teachers. And I said, well, I'll choose French, but only if I get the young teacher. So there was a young teacher and there was an older teacher. And the older teacher was like, well, just listening to the sound of the French, I was like, but when the young teacher, funny guy, actually did it, it was like empowering. It really felt good. He's actually running the school nowadays, so that tells you a little something. And well, they listened to it. Now, going back to the people who ran the school, I didn't go to gymnastics. I couldn't do it. So just like my brother, I had a problem with my knees. This was probably for me also linked to being hypermobile, but around the same time that he actually got his first symptoms, then 4 years later I followed. And well, basically whatever we did, it didn't feel good. So I couldn't walk the stairs, I couldn't run, all those kind of things. So no way I was going to participate in gym. Actually, that saved me because there are way more things that I can't do, but I had no clue about it. Now I know, but back then I didn't. So at some point, I was approached by one of those in charge of the school, and he said to me, well, how about gym? I said, what about gym? Well, don't you need a note or something? I said, why would I need a note? You know about what's going on with my knees. Do you think it's going to change all of a sudden? That was it for me. I think I walked out. That was about it. And right now I'm like, really? Was I that kind of person that did it? But yes, I was. I still don't understand it, but I think Jumping Bunny is that voice. So getting back to communication and conversation, we talked about the inner story. And like I said, if you would have asked me if I would have done it, probably I would have said no. But there were more things that I did back then, which I considered normal. So, even though I was an introvert around other people, when it came to standing up for myself, and I'm not talking about being bullied, but when it came to adults, apparently that worked. So good for me, I'd say. Now, here's the thing. When we talk about Jumping Bunny, her communication style is absolutely unfiltered. And just maybe I can give you a little taste of it later on. So in the heart of it is the commitment to clarity. So what would you commit yourself to when we talk about changing your inner story? So what is important for you? How would you like to live your life? So I talked, for instance, about not feeling comfortable telling people like, I don't want to do this. And a lot of people actually, they're afraid to lose friendships or to not be nice anymore. And so they don't do it, or they consider it rude because of the way they are raised. And well, I don't have that problem anymore. I mean, if you are dealing, especially with physical boundaries, but I also have had my mental ones. Well, yeah, I had a burnout, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. Then you learn to set boundaries. And also because some people had it in for me, not only when I was growing up at school. It actually came to a point that 2 kids tried to kill me. Well, actually, one had it in mind, but 2 were needed in order to do so. Um, yeah, when I was working, especially when I started working for a company that didn't send their people to other jobs, but I would just work for one boss. Um, yeah, things didn't go the way I wanted to. Well, they started out fun. It was always fun, I had all the freedom. I could do whatever I wanted as long as the job got done. But then management would change and they wanted me to be in there like early in the morning or whatever time it was, and they expected me to do certain things. And I was always doing the job for, I'm going to say probably the wrong thing, but it explains it all, for the odd ones out there. So they saw that I actually resonated with, say, for instance, the foreign clients or the clients who had a different computer center than normal. So whenever there was something which wasn't within what was expected, they would put me on there. But then when management changed, they started to reel me back in. But I would still be dealing with the same clients who were other clients than the norm was. And I'm literally talking about the norm now. So I wouldn't fit in. And for the sake of having me fit in, they would say, well, it's Christmas, so you need to be there. And then the others can go home because you're part of the team. Well, I wasn't part of the team. I didn't even do the same work as the team did, but well, there you go. So my inner story back then, when I was growing up, especially when I started working at the company called Pink Elephant. So yeah, pink, but then elephant, not bunny. So they trained me on the job. That was good. Still grateful till this day for all their training. I felt part of the family. They actually talked about the classes from each month of each year. So I was class of September 92. And I was raised like, you just go on. You just did. I mean, when I fell flat on the floor doing judo and jiu-jitsu, my nose was broken. And the teacher said, well, that toughens you up. Well, thank you for that one. I still have the scars on my nose. But, that was the way it was. So when I first started developing repetitive strain injury, and even though the CEO knew of the company, no one shared with me what I could and couldn't do. So yes, I stayed a few months at home. Yes, I've walked in a cast brace. But at the same time, I would be driving, well, at minimum, I think 80 or 90 minutes, just going there. If I was out of luck, it was over 2 hours. And also the other way around. And I can tell you, I couldn't even open a bottle of water or a glass of milk. I had to open the carton and I couldn't. And I had to ask other people, because I was walking around like this, like, can you please cut my meat and give me something to drink? That's how I was typing behind the computer back in the days in the computer centers, because they were like, well, it happened over there, so go back over there. It's their problem. Well, anyway, getting back to that one, I didn't know how to stand up for myself because my inner story prevented that. My inner story was tuned to, you just do whatever you have to do in order to make it work. I know that nowadays, a lot of people, especially the younger generation, they probably won't get it because, normally their parents have money and they see money coming out of the wall. Well, actually, nowadays it's just on the phone. So they don't even see cash money anymore. So the question, of course, is, do they have any idea about the worth of money and what you have to do in order to get things done? And a lot of people also, due to shortage of houses, especially here, they live with their parents till end of 20s, and then they're getting a little bit desperate because they want their freedom and the parents want their freedom. But back in my days, I was actually late with 21. Most people left the house when they were around 18 years old. When they would go to university, they would, go to the city and they would stay in the dorm. Now, getting back to the whole inner story, when you want to change the inner story, it takes two things. Well, actually, it takes a couple of more things, but the commitment, of course, it starts with the commitment, and it starts with being courageous. So literally mustering up all the courage, and it is about being confident. So it's about trusting that it will be okay, even if you don't trust yourself yet that you can do it, that you say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow the process. I'm going to trust the process, that if I do it every day, that change is going to be there. And actually, I have had 3 words since 2018. Yes, I got them from Brendan Burchard. Well, he didn't pick them for me, but we were all in the same room when he asked that question, and he still asks the questions. And it was like, okay, if you look at your future version, then which 3 characteristics would you like to have? So which words would you want to live up to? And I was like, okay, intentional. So I know what I'm going to do when I start the day. And also during the day, I know what it is I want to do. Confident, but before that, courageous. So it was like, if I do things often enough, it gets easier, and then the confidence will grow on me. Now, nowadays, they are different. They are like abundant, which also applies to abundant in all number of areas. Skilled, which has to do with learning and know how to do things, getting better, really getting to that expert level. And poise. And I was like, okay, what's poise again? But it's about being confident and grounded and being okay with whatever it is that you're doing. Now, please note, I'm not a native English speaker. So sometimes when there are those new words for me, like poise, I'm like, what is it? And it takes me a number of times to actually get acquainted to it. I think it was sort of similar with the word serendipity at first. And I was like, what's serendipity? But it's kind of a funny word, the way it sounds. But yes, I like the new words, and I've chosen the new words to push myself to a different level. Now, when it comes to changing the inner story, I already told you a little something about journaling. So the question, of course, is, what do you want to change? So I'm asking you, if you have a journal or notebook right now, write it down. What is it that I want to change? Who do I want to change into? And I use the word future self. So I refer to it as the future champ. You can also say it's your inner champ, but that's the one who has all the traits that you want in life. So if you're looking at someone who you would like to be a role model, why would you be that role model? What is it that they have that you want? So if you have the time, just write down a number of words and circle like 3 of them. And you can use those and, put them in your phone as a reminder when you set your alarm, and then you put those words in and remind yourself of it. So another thing, and I actually do that when I go down the stairs, and I go to the restroom. There's a mirror there. So, and first of all, I'm already moving, and then I'll start bouncing when I'm looking in the mirror. And, remember that I put my hands on my heart and said, I love myself. So, do you tell yourself, I love myself? Do you love yourself? Can you tell yourself? High five. But those three words, you can say them too. So, nowadays, I'm bouncing because it's about movement. And then I'll say I'm abundant. Usually it starts with energetic. I'm energetic, I'm skilled, I'm poised. So, and I'm abundant. So the skills usually comes to the surface. Energetic usually comes to the surface easily. And then I'm like, what was then? Oh yeah, that's what it was. So it's still kind of new. And if I would say I'm intentional, I'm courageous, and I'm confident, that that's way easier for me to say. So those three words, when you are bouncing, you are developing something, and I really need to check this one because I wrote it down. It's called BDNF. That much I remember. The B is for the brain, so that's the easy one. The D is derived, then the N for neurotrophic factor. Well, anyway, it changes something. There's this little thing that's getting released, which actually changed something inside of you. And it's like you are telling yourself, oh, this is what I want. But well, I don't know if that's actually true, but more it's amplified in all directions. And the more you do it, the more your brain gets trained to actually go and live up to that new standard. So that's something you can do too. So are you willing to actually do the bouncing? There's so much when it comes to the brain and to the inner story, when it comes to what we tell ourselves and how we can change it. So, just to give you one very simple example, don't use the word no. Don't say, I don't want you, and then use something negative. But see what it looks like. If you use no and negative, then switch it to what it is that you want. So, people can usually tell what you don't want to happen. So I don't want to be confined to certain hours working for a boss. Okay, that's what I don't want. So what I do want is I want to be working as my own boss, and I want to be able to determine when I work. And well, I'm not going to work the same hours every day. I just do it the way it comes. So it actually is kind of nice to have certain blocks of time. So usually I work during the night. Yes, I do. It's simply easier. And yes, it's more quiet. So then I can do my thing. And of course, which is, well, that was Bunny. At some point, yeah, Bunny's up there on the floor. Well, I told you she's jumping. So, although I can't blame her this time around. Like tomorrow, for instance, I get training and it starts in the evening and it goes on till during the night. So it's easier to shift my hours. And of course, there are also other reasons that I need to think about, how much I sleep and when I actually take a break to recharge again. So now that we have commitments, so the commitment to clarity. So you want to know what you'll be working on, so you know your three words. Well, this is going nice. He's back again without his helmet this time. So now you know why it's Rockstar. So the chief was actually related to the fire station. So he has this cute fireman outfit. But yes, Chief Rockstar, that's his name. So when I talk about the inner story, when I started, I have this backpack, and on my backpack there are just like this little one. So for some reason it never got attached to my backpack, probably because something here is missing. So this is too small to just put it attach it to my backpack. But Yes, I've got all these things, like I've got um, earplugs for concert. I've got earplugs for when I'm flying. There is that actually there? I wanted to have a bullhorn on there, but they didn't have it in the little sizes. So that one is no. But yes, all over the place where I've been, also related to concerts, I got all these little things attached to it. So there are a lot of little stuffed animals. At some point, I was in Chicago and I went to Build a Bear. And well, you could pick a bear, and I picked this one because underneath his foot there is Chicago. And well, the reason I went to Chicago and started watching the Chicago series had to do with Chicago PD. I'd lost a client, and well, I started binge watching Chicago Fire. And I learned that we cannot take responsibility for everything and everyone, and that when someone makes a choice, they make the choice and not me. So when I went to Chicago, it seemed to make sense to visit the fire station. And actually, ever since, whenever I go to Chicago, you'll see me visiting fire stations. So it seemed to make sense when I had to name the little guy, to call him Chief, and then Rockstar, because I'm also into music. Now, I started carrying Chief Rockstar in my backpack. I mean, I had the little ones. Why not put a big one on there? Now, I don't have Chief Rockstar on my backpack very often, because of the rain and the weather over here. But whenever weather allows it, I like to do it. And I really like to dress them up during the holidays. I can see that a lot of people actually get to smile. So one of my friends, well, actually, a couple of my friends said, well, it's like it's your kid, it's your baby. Well, I don't have any children. So it affects using hand gesture. Why on earth would that show up the moment that I'm going live? Or maybe because I'm using my hands a lot. So that could be true. But it's like this big black box is suddenly showing up in my screen. So it draws my attention. Now, I said something about not only journaling, not only about the bouncing and the BDNF, of course, determining also what it is you want to achieve. So what do you want clarity on? But I also talked about your inner kid. So your inner kid, that's usually the ones with the dreams, because your inner kid, well, 0 till 7, it's the same time when you also develop all those mindsets which might be working for you or usually against you. But here's the thing, usually children are very playful, and when I was at home I would be playful. That was until I became a teenager. But when I was at school, I was a daydreamer. I didn't fit in. I didn't know how to fit in. So I was like, okay. And well, it gave me the ability to do my homework during classes because, well, I was sort of listening half and, writing things down. And the other part was, oh, I already know. And then, like I said, I was doing my homework. So I never really fit in back then. Now, what I did do, like I said, I was a daydreamer. And somewhere when I got older, and this is also a little bit linked to being the youngest one in the family, I would have these moments that I would be very restless. I would be high on adrenaline. I would be really happy, actually. So let me go to a concert and, eyes wide open, happy, all those kind of things. And, well, that's me. And nowadays we refer to that person as jumping bunny. So when I got to talk to the AI and we talked about inner kids and everything, we came up with Jumping Bunny, and it was so simple to talk on behalf of Jumping Bunny. So usually it starts with jump, 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 and then she wants to say something. And it's like I literally get this story in my mind about what it is. And first I was like, well, I can tell about it, but aren't people going to think like, oh, she has this so multiple personality disorder? And I was like, well, that's not what it is. It's actually listening to your heart and actually speaking up about what it is that you want to get across. Here's the thing. Jumping Bunny functions as my inner kid. So I want Jumping Bunny to be happy, to be playful. Now, you might have heard that that wasn't the kid I was growing up, because I didn't fit in, I didn't understand it. So when you look at the characteristics of Jumping Bunny, not everyone is going to be so amused with her. Actually, I can tell you a lot of people aren't. She is unfiltered. She just says it like it is. She is determined. If she wants to do something, she's going to do it. No second thoughts. She's just going to do it. She is bold. Oh my God. She is courageous and she is very trusting. And well, when you look at the inner story, I think those are very good things. Well, since I started talking on behalf of Jumping Bunny, and I don't know if I actually can make that switch. Okay, well, let's see. So I'm not sure I'm going to say this, but she actually wants to say like, hey, I'm here. And it's so good to be here, but who on earth are you? I mean, Mommy Lexi, she's looking at that black hole there on the side of the screen, and then you are supposed to see what? See me. That's the way she would respond because she's a kid. And then, well, in my mind now, she's like, Mommy Lexi, what are you doing? And if I explain to her, like, hey, so she's not here, but in my mind, she's somewhere close. And I would say to her, like, hey, Bunny, you know what? We are sharing with people about you. Well, she would be over the moon, like, hey, jump, jump, jump. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool that people are. But why are you talking about me, Mommy Lexi? I don't get it. Well, we're talking about the inner child, about inner kids and how they can be playful. And, it's so important that you can be yourself and you can feel safe. And, well, I want you to be confident and happy like all your life. So, Mommy Lexi, are you telling me that not everyone feels that way? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you, because when I grew up, I wasn't as confident as you are now. You weren't? No, I wasn't. Oh, okay. So I heard a little something, Mommy Lexi. You say I'm unfiltered and I'm bold. Am I? Oh, yeah. You just jump in and you jump on people's shoulders and everything. And, you just say it like it is. So please note that we are talking here about when I'm writing stories. So it's like on a virtual level. Mommy Lexi, what are you doing? You are determining, you're diminishing me. I don't like that. I'm sorry, Bunny. It's okay. You are good the way you are. Yes, you are good the way you are, and I love you. Well, I'm not sure if that's good enough. And that's so funny because she is not afraid to question things and to go against me. And I think that's something we need to cherish when it comes to children, that they dare to say something. And of course, all respectful. But you already got a little idea. Mommy Lex, can I go? This is getting a little bit boring. Well, bye. And off she is. And I have learned to rein in Jumping Bunny because I can actually literally feel it. Like there's this feeling of joy and being playful and just not being in a serious mood, but just literally enjoying things. And I might be in a setting where I sort of cannot be like that. Well, I can be playful and I can be joyful, but I might not be able to speak my mind or actually walk off. And then I need to rein in that feeling a little bit. So for me, Jumping Bunny is my inner kid, but it's the upgraded version of my inner kid. And then we get back to the inner story. So by adopting a new version of the inner child and also using that one to express that one, there's a different story. And I already noticed that I'm easier to handle for myself. So, yes, of course, I know the norms and I know the standards. I know what's respectful and what's not. But I'm not going to put myself behind someone or have them come first. I mean, if we think about it, when we are on an airplane and there's no longer any oxygen, what do we need to do? We need to put oxygen mask on our nose first, and second on the little one who can do it. Why? Because we are the ones who are in charge and who are capable of saving, for instance, the children. Now, if you are part of a family and you are the parent, especially when you are a single parent, but if you're the one who's actually in charge of what's going on, then you need to take good care of yourself. So you want to be physically fit, you want to be mentally fit, so you can take care of the children and maybe even the grandchildren. And yes, a lot of people, they take care of the children, what's going on in the house, and then also work. So how does that work? Now, since Jumping Bunny is kind of unfiltered and she doesn't really think about things, now, the good news is I do think about things, but the trust she has, when we give that trust back to ourselves and we learn to trust the process again, then things shift within us. And when I was thinking about today's life, I was like, okay, so what's the message that I want to get across? So, yes, it's about changing the inner story, but what else? And well, I'm about giving people perspective and learning them to speak up. And how cool would it be if you could go back in time and actually change what you learned as a kid? And now, by speaking on behalf of your inner kid, you can actually do it. But of course, you need to know what you want your inner story to be. So, getting back to what did you write down? Do you know by now what the three things are? Who is your role model? What do you want to be like? So maybe you want to write down what you don't want to be like. That usually helps. And then we go on to what you want to be like. And I don't know if you remember this part, but this one is a handout. And if you want to, you can sign up to get this as a free handout. And it's got 7 ways of how to communicate. And these ways are actually meant to rewrite your inner story, but in a more playful and joyful manner. So it is 7 ways to express yourself with fun. So whether it's by listening to music or singing along, karaoke style, whether it is writing in your journal for yourself or writing stories or telling stories for other people, it could be being creative, sketching, You know, when we're talking about brainstorming, it's not just about writing words down. You can also use symbols. I mean, how often don't we send text messages nowadays? Um, Very quickly, we used emoticons because people couldn't tell what we were thinking because they couldn't see our faces. So being creative actually helps you to come up with all these new ideas. I mean, look at Jumping Bunny. He is Jumping Bunny, Chief Rockstar. He is unique. He's the only one who has the Chicago shirt with the firefighter outfit, wearing a bandana with his sunglasses, going by the name of Chief Rockstar. And I'm pretty certain that only a few out there actually have their Build-A-Bear on their backpack. So, and yeah, people like it. So I think that by expressing myself, the playful side, showing Chief Rockstar, that it was easier to actually also adopt Jumping Bunny. I mean, I was called Jumping Bunny anyway, so you know. So then it's about designing things that work for you, and you have to figure out what it is for yourself. But some things might actually work for you. It could be a way of living. It could be certain standards. You figure it out. Then it's about visualizing things. So you start by dreaming about it, and then you go to visualizing. And well, that's why I have the word future. And then, of course, it's about voicing yourself. Now, if you are up for it, you want to change your inner story, you can start by the things that I told you. You know, who do you want to be? Also think about why you want to be that person, what's going to change for you. Sign up to get this one. And well, I told you a little bit about something I want to set up. It's called the Steam Power Collective. And Steam Power Collective is actually for those out there who are neurodivergent and who are leaders, and you want to get in touch with other people who also run a unit. And a unit could be whether it's your own business, or maybe it's like this huge family, or you know, whatever it is that you are in charge of. And what do you run into? And I want to get the people together, and especially because neurodivergents have a different way of looking at things. So often they look at things visually instead of looking at words. Especially when you are creatively gifted, then you do things in a creative way. So I want to assemble those people, and because they often have difficulty with understanding what the other one is saying or being understood, vice versa. And I can tell you, I have a whole bunch of stories when it comes to those things. I want them to understand, first of all, what's holding them back when it comes to speaking up and speaking out. So I want to know what's their inner story, what's the narrative that they're telling themselves, and have that changed. But I also want them to learn to speak up in a way that they are being heard and are being seen. So it's all about perspective, if you think about it. And well, if you want to be part of that, then just find me, hit me up. I'll let you know when and where. But keep an eye on these lives, especially on YouTube. And there are probably links somewhere in Instagram too. But that's where you want to go. So if you have any questions or you want to leave any comments, especially about your inner kid, please do so. And otherwise, I'll see you again the next weekend on the next live.